Good evening, everybody, anybody out there listening. Jen here with more high strangeness as usual. Sam's here, of course, and his friend, little girl. I hope everybody is well. If I do ramble for a minute, that's kind of just what I do and how I get into the video. Wow, things are really, at least in the media and allegedly across the world, things are kind of coalescing into this big, giant, perfect storm. Pun not intended. It just suits. So Helene, the giant hurricane, I talked about that last time. And again, this personal connotation. This channel, the content is an ongoing testimony. I do that to try and point to the fact that, hey, there's a spirit realm. We are spiritual beings as well as physical beings, and we have to feed both of those. And I believe that our creator maker has been not silent like so many other people think. I think he or she has been the opposite of that. You're going to say, oh, you said she, are you a pagan? I don't get into the battle like that with gender ideology in that way as far as God goes, because the Bible describes God as, a father and the head of the family. And then at moments, Christ says he is like a mother hen. And I know sometimes I need my mother. And as a Catholic, you're raised like you can talk to Mary, you're not worshiping her, you're just kind of talking to her. Because everybody needs that nurturing aspect to kind of cling to in times of a storm. And Mary has been all over, seen all over. And so I guess that suits the tone and the conversation as well. If you haven't been here before, I totally believe, and a part of me knows that there's a very antichrist spirit around me and the town that I live in and Ohio as a whole right now. And there has been for several years. I've been talking about it for a long time. And please understand at this point, if you've been with me on both channels and this one for a while, even though this one is smaller, that doesn't make the journey any less surprising or shocking or just awesome when God does reveal things. And I guess I'm kind of leading to a place and I don't really know what to say. I'm at a loss. When you don't really have a voice or you don't have a big platform and people don't hear what you're trying to tell them, it's definitely isolating and secluding, and you just walk in faith. You go forward and keep pushing, hoping that somebody somewhere will be helped by your message and your own testimony. And most people, if they aren't believers at this time or they aren't biblically studied, they are at least coming around to the fact that, okay, evil is a real deal. And before JP ever said it, we were saying it on the Berean channel, like we are seeing this evil and here it is, right? Because you're supposed to expose it, but understand there are certain things as well. You're not supposed to just speak outwardly, blatantly, where anyone, especially children, can hear you. So we shouldn't go to extremes that way either as believers. And believe it or not, Christ was not political directly. Everything that happened politically around him was an indirect side effect of his main mission and ministry here, which was to walk this out and be a template and show us how it's supposed to look, and to pay the dividend, because nature and natural law requires that there be a cleansing from time to time upon the land, and farmers know this. That's why they rotate crops, and they know all about talks of harvest and seasons and watching the times change. So when we talk about these things on a bigger scale or biblically or looking at ancient text, it's not a far out there woo-hoo kind of. It is very scientific in its methodology and the research that you have to put through. Sorry, I needed to sip of my water. It's been kind of a day or a week or a few years. And so if you followed this channel for any amount of time, I was looking today just now on this channel. It must be on the other one, and I don't know if it's still on there. But I'll look and see if I have the video saved. I'm having an issue with my one Gmail account. But I talked about the flooding dreams over and over. Like, I had those dreams for probably a couple of years before I even knew they were anything or they meant anything. And they were very realistic. Everything was in color, of course, and just very realistic. And so I know what come after that, and it's very surreal seeing these things play out. So where am I going with this? A couple of videos ago, we talked about I had some insight that God had shown me, because I'm not supposed to stay stuck in one paradigm. I'm supposed to look at the bigger circle and the bigger picture of things and cycle of events. And I remembered that the Clintons had a charity in Haiti, and that Hillary is allegedly some giant witch. Don't come for me. Bigger channels talk about it. They've already come for me. It doesn't really matter. And she is allegedly this like head witch or whatever. And they spent time in Haiti, right? And we have this immigration problem. And most people are concerned with like the southern border. They've forgotten kind of like about Cuba and Florida and that whole area, and Canada. They've forgotten about. But Haiti is a prime region for paganism, and not just their religion, their way of life, their culture is like a hoodoo, voodoo, Santeria. And if you know Sublime, that's where the title came from. I don't practice Santeria is a song. But a lot of them, especially the women, gravitate towards that. I don't know why it's women. I think it's because I do believe we have a different connection to God, because we have life in our womb and we carry life. Don't come for me, men. I'm just being honest. We have a different type of connection with God. And I found it interesting that in the book of Adam and Eve, Eve was the one who hit her knees first and kind of like brought Adam down with her, and they repented and prayed for the first time together. And she took the lead in that, which was kind of as it should have been, considering everything that had happened. But if you look at that, then I talked about how everyone was talking about these cats in Springfield, Ohio. And I said, that's not what's going on. I said they're either A, ending them for their demon favors and to get certain things to happen for them, to get their material goods or whatever it is they're wanting. And, geez, of course. Later. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm on a backup device still, so things happen. I apologize. Anyways, the women come here, right, in abundance. And I got insight way back on the original channel when somebody told me that I should watch Owen Benjamin, and he started straying into, he said something, and he was like, well, you know, polygamy was even accepted back then. And when people gave him a little pushback, he's like, well, it's understandable in times of war when, you know, women need protected. And I knew right when I saw that, okay, Mormonism is not ended like polygamy. That's a thing. Because I had already been led through that, again, by the Spirit, by the Holy Spirit, I believe, by God. So if you put all these things together, most of our men, and the reason God, and please, again, don't stop listening just because I'm saying this or I'm saying that. Hear the whole message or the entirety before you dismiss it. Please, because if you've watched me for any, or, you know, watched either channel for any amount of time, you know, I've tried to build up trust, and that I speak directly, and I've read parts of my journal and personal things. And what I need this all to come full circle for you guys, so you see this happening and you say, okay, I need to get right, and I need to walk in a way that this does not hurt me or my family. And the way to do that is not through weapons of the flesh, if you know what I'm saying, the Second Amendment. Now, I don't down anybody who does that. You got to protect your family. I'm not here to judge you. I'm saying, spiritually speaking, if you want to be as shiny as possible and you want to have a shield around you and your family and your home, those things in your house, they're only going to give spiritual license for violence. You're giving consent for the spirit of violence to be in your family and your home, in a nutshell. Okay. So back to the Santeria. Our men over here, a lot of them are in air. And I've said this before, and this is going to be revealed just like everything else. There are a lot of men on the down low. Yeah, especially public men. They are not actually, they're a part of the Rainbow Club, but they have a family and they put out like they're a certain type of way. Because again, anyone that's been in an abusive relationship, what they're doing right now, some of them, not all of them, there are some real converts. God is doing a thing. But again, they're celebrity, right? They're on that screen for a reason. And I don't even think a lot of them, I think most of them are proxies. And I've talked about that before, so I'm not going to get into it right now. The important thing that you understand is that false sense of security. They are love bombing Christians right now to make us feel like it's safe to be out in the open and everything's cool and copacetic, right? They've been hiding the persecution that already came to America and has been here. Now, I've heard reference to public execution and regular everyday speak out of nowhere, just out of the blue. And only one or two other people were shocked by it. And one was in reference to me directly. Anyways, I try not to get too personally attached as I'm going through this, because again, we are vessels, and you're either a vessel every day, every moment, for good or evil, right? You still have your personality, you still have your spirit, but you've got that good devil or good angel and bad devil, on each shoulder, so to speak. And you can go one of either ways. And when people speak to me, for whatever reason, I bring out that demon in people. God, I hate to say that. And so at the end of this, I'm going to talk about your spiritual authority, but I'm going to a place with this. So thank you for being patient and just bear with me. Okay. So, I don't even know. A couple of videos ago when we talked about the cats, and I said the one thing they might be doing is ending them. Another one is the Babylonian thing. You got a lot of ancient, what do we call it? Ancestor worship happening. Now that is happening through a lot of different venues. That's coming through Mormonism when they do the baptism on the dead. Like all these practices, that's not, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be baptizing yourself and using yourself as a proxy and then baptizing yourself in another name of somebody with the intention of that spirit in mind, because then you're giving consent to be possessed by whatever spirit that is, in a nutshell. If that person is not happy wherever they're at, they now have permission to enter your vessel. And I know, again, if you're not waking up to the fact that we are under massive spiritual oppression and repression, especially here in America, we are going through it right now, and we have been. For whatever reason, I seem to be 3 years ahead of everybody else. And so that's why I try to do this. And I talked about this just very recently. So I'm going to show you something, and I haven't really looked at it yet because it makes me angry. Okay, I'm a pacifist. I have no desire to do anyone any harm. But this makes me angry. And this had entered, God had already told me this was a thing in my personal life. This is one of the ways a loved one of mine was pulled into this. And I know you listen, because I know you do. And I mean no disrespect to your religion or anything like that. But what you're doing is wrong on a massive scale, and you're breaking natural law, especially when you're trying to get someone's heart or attention or favor through false idol worship and demonology. Because I'm going to tell you something here, and I'm going to give you a gift here. If you're listening, this is spiritual warfare. And I'm going to probably say a tiny cuss, but it'll be effective. When you exchange, when the occult people, when they make an exchange of the currency, and the currency is blood, when they do these rituals, it is to bring forth something else to this side. Because here's the deal. They don't want just the blood. The blood is a vehicle. It's a venue. It makes the exchange possible. They still need something else from you. Like, that's not what you're actually giving them, okay? That is just what opens the portal, basically, all right? The blood is a portal, all right? Blood is life. So they enter through that. Once they are here, all bets are off. You have no authority over them. You are their bitch because you are not walking in the authority of Christ. And I'm going to show you something now. And I'm not sorry if I offended. I'm not. Time is so short, so short. And I don't care what the media is showing you. I really don't care if you ever watch the news, if you don't know what's going on in their Israel and the Zionism, all this, that, and the other, because I pray for Israel. Like, whoever the real Israels are and whoever, whatever that means to God. I pray for that group of people. But what we're seeing on TV is always some type of inversion or exact opposite of what is true. Okay? So keep that in mind. If they want us looking at another nation, we should be looking in our own backyard. Now, I'm going to show you something now, and for the first time ever, I might actually say, I told you so. And it wasn't even me. It was God talking to me and me trying to tell people. And everybody say, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. At this point, I wish I was crazy. I have tested everything that's happened to me. I have tested the spirit. If I have seen anything, like, it's never been a hallucination. It's always been an active, present thing. Of course, I've had dreams with my eyes closed and a vision or two with my eyes closed. But the things that God is showing me are actually being done through people around me. And when they brought up these public executions the other day, we're getting warnings. We are getting these warnings, and I've shown them to you. When Elon posted that thing and he said, you never get off your knees. Which is funny because I'd said that same thing to myself that day because I have a sick dog and I do a lot of cleaning up after him and I clean up at work. And I pray a lot. I'm literally on my knees all the time. It's like breaking my one knee down really bad. Anyways, this makes me angry and it's definitely a righteous anger. And you should be angry too. And if you're not and you're dead inside, you need to check yourself. Like you should at least care about your family and your country, even if you're not a believer in Christ or salvation or redemption or any of these things. I told you this. We talked about this a couple of videos ago about Hillary and the witches and the Santeria. And what bothers me, and again, every church has an issue. And God had told me to write a letter to each church. And I honestly haven't done that yet. I've made videos about it and talked about it, but every church has something they're doing that's really good. And we all need to take note of that. But everyone has this thing they're doing wrong. Catholicism can get into idolatry if you're not careful because women like relics, right? And we like shiny things and we like jewelry. And it's very easy to lure a woman through her senses that way, right? That's how it worked. It was eat of this. Every sin has started with eating and eating wrong and consuming. And that's a parable too. It's not just literal. So I'm not going to read all of this word for word. What bothers me about this is, number one, it's Tyler Durden. That is the caricature, right? From, what's it called? Fight Club. It's Brad Pitt's character. And the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. And it's the black eye club because, he's got the black eye in the movie. That's a whole thing, right? And that's a whole video and a series by itself. It's a whole iceberg all unto itself. So I don't always trust what's here, all right? but we can check it out. I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to see what it says. Now, you see, it says there a drenched, fiery scene played out in Haiti on Thursday as a rampaging gang ended at least 70 individuals and injured 16 more, mowed down by or by fire. The poorly departed included 3 children and 10 females. What's that number? 13. Okay, so either this is, again, they are warning people and this is a message between them, or it's something that actually took place. Either way, we kind of need to look at it and examine it. And again, Trump said, all they're consuming cats or whatever. I don't know that I believe that, right? Like if they're supposedly getting all these stipends, then they're not doing that. And if they're driving cars but they don't have licenses, again, all of these YouTubers, they're telling you something without telling you something. It is the time of lawlessness. All that Biden has done is wrote executive orders. There is no government right now. That's why it looks like a clown show and everything looks fake. There's already being something else has already, been installed. It's just not been revealed to the public yet. It's not had like its reveal. And I know people don't want to hear this. I know that like that sounds far out for people, especially prideful, quote unquote, baby boomers. And that's also why they're doing what they're doing now. They want a whole new generation because I think they've perfected their genetic tweaking. Like that's why we're having all of these quote unquote experiments across the nation. I'm trying to be very careful with my word choice here. I hope you understand and appreciate that for what it is. It says that this happened in the capital of Sonde, which is located in the agricultural Arabonite department, about 60 miles north of Port-au-Prince. The carnage, which commenced around what time? 3 a.m. Like that's their big time because it's a mockery of Christ allegedly was crucified at 3 p.m. And they only know this because of an earthquake and an eclipse that took place at that same time. Because again, Christ is the sun, the S-O-N, coming down. His star, the light of the world would be the S-U-N. And like I said, it's every individual kind of has a star up there that matches up with them. I don't want to get into the cosmics right now. That's very hard for me to convey still. I'm still learning that. This is all very hard to communicate to people because it's been very overwhelming for me as a person, and then trying to walk about and live a normal daily life while God is showing me all these things. Like I don't even have to leave my own backyard because he's like, all right, I'm going to show you all this, right here on your local stage or community. And then, it ends up being like big news or something. Maybe I'm just a military experiment and they're just like seeing what happens. I don't know. This is wild. Anyways, it says it started at 3 a.m. It prompted more than how many? 6,000. So at the beginning, it said there were 3 babies, 10 women. That's 13. It happened at 3 a.m. The inversion of the crucifixion of Christ, the sacrifice of Christ, which was the last sacrifice. We're all supposed to be living sacrifices, just in case I have not reiterated that enough. I talk about it all the time. This is why I don't go back to the old feasts of like the Old Testament, because I feel like that does away. I feel like it's disrespectful, but that's my current understanding. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong on that. That's just what I do. So this is full of occultic numbers and numerology and gematria. That's obviously very key. They're saying something to each other. The person who shared this, I don't even know what to say. Like if I should even say anything. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of lost right now as far as that goes. All right. So once again, too often we are faced with the most absolute cowardice, said Haitian Prime Minister Gary Conil in a social media post. This heinous crime perpetrated against defenseless women, men, and children is not only an attack on victims, but on the entire Haitian nation. Isn't he, though? Isn't he some voodoo priest? Like, isn't there? And I'm not being disrespectful or glib. I mean, That's the last thing when we looked up Haiti. I believe that's the last thing we heard. The pattern of, we see that, told the Washington Post. Okay, so he's sourcing the Washington Post at least. The patients we admitted had wounds in almost every they had been. We often receive, blah, blah, blah. And this is why I said, like, I do not consent. Because sometimes they think these days when you read something or you see to something, that's you giving passive consent. And that's also how I know we're dealing with a lot of demons. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. Mankind, right, in the hierarchy of things, and I was again discussing this with someone earlier, and I agree, and like, we're both on the same page with this, is mankind has a place in the hierarchy where we're not. I don't tell you this to put you in fear of demons. I tell you this so you understand that there's a lower level energy frequency that affects the frequency of mankind. And if we are not careful to detach these things, they will become attached to us and hinder our walks through life. That is the closest to scientific speak when it comes to demons that I can get. And you have to understand there is a counterfeit of everything. And the counterfeit kingdom very soon is going to look a lot like the real thing. A lot of people are going to be sucked right into this because we like our idols. And again, it's going to be like the Wizard of Oz. At the end of this, it's going to be some nobody behind a curtain that nobody's ever heard of or ever seen. And the person is just a petulant child, honestly, having a temper tantrum of epic, epic proportions. Think the Omen or Rosemary's Baby on crack. Like that's what we're taught. That's the attitude and mentality of these types that we're dealing with. And even the Hopi prophecy said, in these times, things would walk amongst us that should never have been. And that's the Nephilim. And I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just trying to teach mankind how to walk in your authority and to shake these things off. Because if you do not, if you give them, even in this time, it's dangerous to give them passive consent. Now, right now, they're not allowed to do us any harm. Okay? I don't know how long that's going to be true for. We're seeing dams break all over physically. That's happening everywhere, all over the East Coast. That's a physical manifestation of something that's already happened spiritually. Okay, and I don't know how else to phrase that, and I apologize if I don't phrase that right. But right now I'm going to point to something, and I want you to see this because I'm tying it all together, and I'm giving it to you wrapped in a bow. And I hope that no matter who you are, that you can take something from this. I am not telling you to hate anyone that has a different religion. I don't believe in that per se. I don't believe in holy wars. I think we should be past that. I will say the best way to deal with this is through prayer, fasting. Absolutely pray over all your food. Don't let anyone else prepare it because a lot of these people are all over the place. Most of them are very bad drivers. And a lot of them, I totally believe, are working for places like DoorDash. I know this for a fact. Like, I just know it. And I've known that for a while. I warned you about some of this in the beginning. I pray over everything I eat. It doesn't really bother me. That I'm telling you, like, this is something you should be doing every single day. You cannot get through this time or any time without prayer. If you think you're saved and you are not praying and you're not talking to God, how can you have a relationship with a person you don't know and you don't talk to? The best way to deal with this stuff and to cope with it and to counteract it and deactivate it and render it null and void is to walk in the light as much as possible. Walk in truth. Do not lie to yourself. Especially, that counts too. Don't deceive yourself. And you have to know that we literally tread upon demons. We walk upon the serpents, right? Learn little phrases. Sprinkle certain verses into your speech like Christ did. If you're not a believer, I would suggest getting saved and converted as soon as possible but be baptized. You've got to be baptized. Like, I believe in the whole ball of wax. I believe salvation is a participatory event that lasts your whole life. I think it's a marathon. I don't think it's a sprint. So I'm all about the process of the refinement of your spirit. But if you have not started yet, we're coming into some very trying times. And whether you have to physically deal with something or you have to mentally deal with it, you need to be strong. And that starts in spirit. You have to encourage your spirit, and you have to know what the truth is. And you have to know already, like, I'm not going to go past, like, I'm not going to do this, right? Like, I already know that I'm not voting for the lesser of two evils. I am so frustrated with Catholics being so political and talking about that. Well, you just got to vote for the lesser of two evils. And this campaign, vote like your life depends on it. I am telling you, I have brought you so many warnings about that. I told you about an experience I had with Mary and what she said to me, and it was just really quick. I warned you about Haiti. I warned you this was happening. Look at the movies they're showing now and about women who are putting their currency, their blood into food to get men and to, I don't know how else to like open people's eyes. So I'm going to point to this because this is the first thing I thought of, seeing all this. This is why we're dealing with this. And this is, again, we're in a time of judgment. And in my opinion, we have been in it. And the Antichrist is going to be revealed very soon. And the Antichrist only gets 3.5 years. So he's only going to get the next 3.5 years, and that's it. Yes, there's going to be a great revival, but it's going to come at a cost. People are so stone cold right now, and their consciences are seared. And God's will is that a lot of them be saved, right? As many who are willing is willing. So the only way to wake these people up is going to be through stark trial and tribulation, like flooding, like catastrophe, like earthquake, like fire, and by seeing people they love persecuted. And I know how that sounds, and you're going to say, well, I'm not just going to be some willing. I'm not telling you what you have to do or what choice you have to make. I'm just warning you. Like, this is what I do. So that's, repent, man. Repent. Find God. Seek God. Even if you don't believe, teach your child to believe. Teach them about God. Learn about God together. Because that's where morals come from. In the end, like, why else are you being Have? Why else are you being good? Somebody told me before, a loved one, well, I don't want to go to jail. I'm like, dang, I'm lucky there's laws. Because the laws are to protect the innocent, right? They're meant to keep the other ones in line. Most of us are supposed to know by now how to govern ourselves. And I pulled this up. Usually I don't like to do this these days because I'm on a backup device, but I'm just going to read a couple things real quick. What the Bible says about intermarriage with pagans. Ezra 10:10 through 11. This breaking up of whole families, many of whom had perhaps been living happily together for many years, was a drastic but necessary step. Ezra, who seemed to have God-given insight into the divine plan, understood what had to be done and the reasons for it. And I just said, repent. Drop the idols. Try to get these people converted. Be Christ to them. Witness to them. And if you are one of these people, you're new in our country. Why would you want to ruin it? Don't act like a beast. Don't act like an animal. Be grateful. And any religion that requires you to do these things, that's not God, man. That's not God. That's not Father. The spiritual reasons are, of course, the most important. God says many times in the Pentateuch that the intermarriage with pagans is spiritually dangerous. See, for instance, Deuteronomy 7:1 through 4. It was far more likely that rather than the heathen spouses being won over to worship of Israel's God, they would influence their sons and daughters to worship idols. If this were to happen frequently, Israel would soon be entirely idolatrous. And that's why you don't have open borders and just let anyone into your house unawares. I love my neighbors, and that includes immigrants and emigrants. Most of us came here that way, right? Or at least that's what we're told. Okay? So I'm not hating on any group, and I am just not. I wasn't raised that way. And I was raised in a melting pot of a city, so I get it. But when it comes to marriage, I know from experience, being uneven, equally yoked, like I had no idea. I We're not supposed to judge unbelievers the same way, right? Um, and I didn't. Like for a long time, I just figured, well, they don't know God the way I do, right? And I saw my mother-in-law taking my children to like different churches just to hear music, but they were still going. Um, I see all that a little differently now, but point being that there's a reason laws and guidelines are made to keep people safe and so that you are prosperous and so that you have a life full of abundance. That's what God's promise is for us. But if you go outside certain parameters, right? Like, I don't know, you wouldn't see like a giraffe hanging out with a gorilla, just like you wouldn't see a lamb hanging out with a lion or a wolf. Huh. Or a wolf with a lion. Wow, I just saw that in a really personal way too. I gotta finish this and jump off because I'm just overwhelmed. I apologize. Um, so basically what they're saying there is negative influences, and you know that when you have a group of friends. All it takes is one or two people to like be persuasive enough and they're gonna talk the whole group of people into doing something stupid. And next thing you know, all the parents are getting a call at 3 a.m. because your kid's done something stupid, right? God is your parent. He's trying to tell you, stay in your lane. I want you to be safe. I don't want bad things to happen to you. So don't do this, right? Don't stick your hand in that light socket because it's gonna hurt you. People don't get it today though. They think that if you're a good parent, that's giving whatever they want. That's not true. That's not true. You're doing them a disservice and you're creating a bunch of individuals who have to depend on the government. And what happens when that breaks down like it is now? You're going to have a bunch of grown infants running around throwing temper tantrums and looting and doing whatever they want with the weakest of the bunch, the elderly, women and children. Where are the men supposed? Well, the men are in air. Some of them are on the down low. They're meeting like Masons. They're part of the Rainbow Club. Some of them are Masons who are dressing up as the drag queens, reading for, like, it's just all connected, all of it. And there's no way mankind could carry out this synchronized of a plan across the entire planet and not have a bunch of stuff go wrong because that's just what we do. When we plan things, things mess up. Nothing ever goes as planned, right? Now I do believe in worldwide conspiracies, but I do, people mess up when there's nothing that could happen this big that would be this coalesced. Like this is the perfect storm. And now they're saying that, I do believe we have weather technology. I do believe that we have that. But for people who believe in God right now to be pointing to technology and blaming man for these storms, shame on you. Because that's probably the most dangerous way to be right now, is to have a form of godliness, but to deny the power thereof. You appear like you have a type of godliness. Jordan Peterson appears to. A lot of YouTubers appear to. But aren't they just sitting on TV gossiping a bunch? Didn't Jordan Peterson write some addition to the Bible like we needed 12 more rules to live by? You don't see the arrogance in that? Like I said, I could just see what he's going to say when he meets Christ. Like I could just hear it in his head when he was having that interview with that Jon Stewart guy, with that musician. What do you mean? What's he going to say? He's going to thank me. I made his book relevant again. And he won't think nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. We're just so lost. Like I was literally bawling earlier because of how my family and friends and loved ones have changed so much, and how badly I want everybody just to be saved, because I see that I know where this dangerous behavior leads. And I was ignorant. Like, I was just negligent is probably one of the like worst, more sinful things you can do, but it came out of ignorance. Like, I genuinely didn't know, and I had no concept of what was happening in the world. And by world, I mean my own family too. Like, I just everybody was good, I thought, and everybody tried to do their best, I thought. And, I didn't know people purposely were lost and, dark. I just had no clue. Okay, so we know that these things happen. Although there's a bit of physical purity involved in this, God's demands are not for reasons of racial superiority, but because he had a purpose for Israel. But also because when you come from a different culture, you're gonna argue a lot about really important things and dumb things. You're not gonna understand each other, right? And it's gonna create a rift in your family right off the jump. And bad morals create good company. So, there's a reason that we're supposed to stay within our certain, like, don't go chasing waterfalls, like that old TLC song. We shouldn't go too far from that. And I just talked about all this. I can't believe, like, it's manifesting, and it's really creepy. The most important purpose is Jesus Christ. To fulfill the prophecies of the promised seed, he had to be directly descended from Abraham through Judah, Jesse, and David. But see, bloodlines were important, but we're not supposed to fight or argue over them, right? Um, so yes, that was his line. But again, also, it leads to war. Like, it leads to warfare, right? It's not a good thing when this happens. So let me go here real quick. Oh, push, push, close. There we go. You're not gonna take me to. There it is. Ezra 10:10. And Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, Ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives to increase the trespass of Israel. So they're saying you increased Israel's sin. Like, they went against nature, natural law, they went against God's law. Now therefore make confession unto the Lord, tell him what you did, like, own up to it, God of your fathers, and do this pleasure and separate yourselves from the people of the land and from the strange wives. Then all the congregation answered and said with a, where'd it go? From the strange wives. Then all the congregation answered and said with a loud voice, As thou hast said, so must we do. But the people are many, and it is a time of much rain, and we are not able to stand without. Now, basically, what God makes them do is he makes them divorce all them wives and leave them, and the children too. God's like, you knew not to do this. Now the children are, and that's what is meant by, like, children paying for their father's transgression. Like, when you have a baby mama, that's not that baby's fault. That's not that child's fault. But now you've got this one, you've got a wife, and you've got a side piece, and you've got a baby's mama. And before you know it, you've got a whole stable, right? Bevy of beauties, right? Huh. Again, my personal life just loves to intrude. Um, and they told me all along, I didn't know they were telling me, You don't realize how they operate until you don't know until you know. Anyways, before you know it, you have a whole gangload of women, and you have to distribute your time between all these different children, or you just don't care and you don't do that at all. And you have children growing up without fathers who are their only role models are women, right? And children mimic what they see. And that's why you have a lot of young men now who are behaving more feminine, because they were raised by a whole generation of single moms, or babies moms, or divorced moms, or, sadly, a lot of people passed away in our generation because of, well, we're told it's one thing, but I'm pretty sure that these sacrifices, they've been happening on purpose for at least 20 years. And the sign that that was starting, that we were getting into, like, that time of sideways behavior, was on September 11th, all those years ago. That was symbolic. And I'm not going to get into the symbology there right now, but I don't know what else to say about this. I really don't. I warned about it and I talked about it, and it's just several videos back. And real quick, I just want to look and see if there is any news. Yeah, CNN, well, CNN aired it too. The New York Times, and their prime minister goes abroad for support. So he doesn't even hang out. He's just going to go globetrot. Really? Like this is what we do. I'm so grossed out, dude. And I'm sorry, like my vernacular, like I don't know what to say about all this. This is just so sad. So sad. And I don't have a problem with immigration or immigration. I think laws exist for a reason, though. And if you have people that you don't know, like I said, you're not going to let strangers into your house. Why would you? It's the same type of thing. You want to make sure people are who they say they are, and they're not going to seek to harm people who are already living there. But again, we are in a time of judgment. And unfortunately, we are paying for our forefathers' mistakes when they invaded this land. And nobody much cares whether we did it or not. They're just looking for their retribution, some of them. And it's sad. Like, it's so gross to me. And I'm going to pray. I'm going to go to bed. And tomorrow's probably going to be another rough day. I pray for you guys all the time. On a personal note, I don't know where to go with that. There's, of course, been some strange happenings. Is it gaslighting? I don't know anymore. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. I still have to behave in the same manner. But I want you all to walk in your authority, walk in victory. You're not supposed to be afraid of things like this. You're not supposed to be afraid of demons. When you are in fear, number one, scientifically, you put off a certain odor, a pheromone. You will attract certain elements, especially in these times. I don't want to go any deeper than that right now. Just understand what I'm saying to you. Do not be in fear. Walk in authority. What does that mean? That means that you have to understand, number one, you're of mankind, and you walk literally on top of those things. They have no power over you unless you give it to them, and they are very sneaky about getting that. As I said before, though, if you are calling these things up on purpose and you have come into somebody else's home country and you're doing this, I'll tell you, number one, you're breaking the law of powers and principalities. There's already a principality above this nation or above the state or the area or the geographical area where you're doing these things. So not only are you going against whatever dominion that already exists there, when whatever it is comes through that you're calling up, you're not walking in the authority of Christ. It just wants to get here, and you're going to do that for it. Whatever promises it made you are gone the second it's here, because you then become its little biatch. That's what happens. You have got to walk in the authority of Christ. His name is the name above all names. That's why you are to be baptized. It is a physical sign of a spiritual intention. It is the meeting of the spirit and the physical. It is a new birth, but also you are to be baptized under his name. Very few people know this. Very few people do it. I cannot tell you how much my life changed when I got baptized under his name. Has there been a lot of suffering? Oh yeah. Has it been worth it? I'll let you know. It's worth it, because I know what's at the end of everything. But I'm a mother, so my main concern even now is my children. I know they don't see that. I know they don't believe that, but that is my concern. Everything else is just icing for me. I hope someone is helped by this. I hope someone is encouraged and edified. You need to start praying properly. I would be more than happy to help you with that. We've done that before on the other channel. I don't know if anyone here is interested. Comments will be open once the video posts. But please understand that I know my authority now, and I'm being led. What's funny is I'm being led and I'm witnessing to a lot of enemies, like right to them. It's like I have a magnet or something, and I end up right in the hornet's nest. But I'm witnessing to the people who need it the most, and that's a blessing. And God is good, and so I call that joy. Absolutely. Does it hurt a lot? Absolutely. Am I in pain a lot? Yep. Um, it's all good though. It's all good. What do I mean when I say walk in authority? I mean, you have to wield the sword of the Spirit, which is your tongue. For example, and this is just a quick example, and then I'm going to bounce. Vade retro satana. Now, well, some of you might know that that is the verse, get thee behind me, Satan, but it's Latin. If you don't want people to know what you're saying, but you want to have an effect, like I've said that under my breath a couple of times, and once a little louder, and each time the individual or the individual's demon that was giving me crap, trying to like antagonize me through that person, they've walked away confused, and I don't even know if they remember it happened. And then more recently, someone left the building, and so I know that my prayer is working and all of but you have to give license. You have to ask God for help. Everything is consent. You have to, and God's not gonna. God knows God made the law. He's not going to like go through loopholes or any of that. He's going to woo you, but he's not going to love bomb you, right? These two kingdoms are going to start to look very similar. Please don't get them confused. The best thing you can do is shut off your television. I haven't watched cable. I haven't had it in my house for many years now. I think that's why it's so blatantly obvious to me when something is fake. I was at work when the POTUS or former POTUS had that thing happen in Butler, and somebody showed it to me and said, look, da 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 da. And I said, you're pulling my leg. I said, you made that with AI or something. Nuh-uh. And of course, after that, that person doesn't work there anymore. It's like the second I catch on to something, it's like they keep sending different people that they think can convince me of something or whatever. Even if it were possible, it would fool even God's elect. Remember, if you're his elect, you're not going to be fooled. They're testing us right now to see who is the elect, who is not, like how, like who's, you know what I mean? They've been doing this for a while. Know your authority. Know it. Push these things back. Do not consent. But you got to have love and forgiveness above all things that you do and say. And you really got to understand that you need to be born again. And the best thing that we can do for people like this that we were just showing earlier is to try and convert them. Do no harm. I'm not an encourager of like war and stuff. I personally think as a civilization and a species, we should be a little bit past that. But the men like their sticks and their stones. So whatever. I love you guys. I pray for you all the time. I do have a cool, or at least an interesting video planned. It's going to be a research with me, but it's not going to be for a couple of days because I need to recoup a little bit. It's been kind of a rough go. So you guys have a great night. Have a good sleep. And by all means, please stay prayed up. We'll talk soon.